Yo, 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 welcome everybody to Swish for Real. It's your boy Big Mike in the building. I got my boy Boogey Bob. What's up, Boogie?
Yo, yo, yo. Glad to be back in the house.
And I know people, I mean, he's been away for many years. It seems like we got the boy, the myth, the legend, Dame Rings of the building. What's up, Dame?
What's up? What's up? Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm glad to be back, man.
Nah, facts. And the people, if you don't know, I know you've been checking out our community section. We post about Cerebro. He's actually a Cerebro employee. So we'll let Dame give y'all a little bit of information about Cerebro, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mike. So at Cerebro, we have built the world's largest corpus of data. We have over 4,500 high school, college, and professional data sets or seasons internationally and domestic. And we recently just partnered with Google to power our AI chatbot that will eventually be a product integrated into our new player app that's coming out next week. Or sorry, not next week, but in the coming weeks in November. And then our new professional V2 of our gold access coming out in January. But yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Man, guys, check Cerebro out. They have a link. We'll put the link in our description so you can check Cerebro out. And Dang, appreciate you coming on, guys. And I'm glad the season has started, and we're talking about the NBA here, guys. And the preseason was pretty interesting. And it didn't give me a lot of I guess knowledge of what's going to be happening, but the splashes in the pan, like Clay coming to Dallas, Chris Paul in San Antonio, and the first few games of the season has been pretty interesting, especially watching the Lakers win. So, Dan, we're going to start with you with the NBA season beginning for 2024-2025. What were some of the surprises in these opening games so far, and what do you anticipate this season being like?
So I am super interested to see where Evan Mobley's at this year. Mobley came out in that first game, absolutely crushed it. The guy had he had 25 points on 64% from the field, 50% from three, which you don't really see him shoot, even though he only took one attempt, or took two attempts, went 1 for 2. And then you also saw him it's what seemed to be more of a natural fit now next to Jared Allen. So seeing how those two guys in Cleveland, what they can do with Donovan Mitchell and their new head coach rolling into the year.
So Mobley plays the forward position, though. So you think he's going to be the second scoring option, or do you think that's still on Darius Garland?
If Darius Garland can stay healthy, I think. But what I think is if Darius Garland can stay healthy, but what you love to see is Evan Mobley, if he needs to be a second option, right? You're not having that scoring drop off like you did if Garland was unhealthy, like you saw last year, and then more specifically in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think I like Karis LeVert too. I've always kind of watched his game, especially when he was in college. He's a baller. Cleveland's an interesting team itself. I mean, even though they beat the Raptors by 30, which is crazy on the opening night. I don't know how you think they'll maintain Donovan Mitchell for a few more years, or you think he'll be trade bait in about another year or two?
I'm not sure. Bob, what do you think? I don't know.
Well, he signed that big extension, so I think it's like a 4-year extension, pretty high. So I don't think, unless he has a major injury or something goes wrong, like Cleveland was one of the teams I called last year. They got Jared Allen at center as well. But yeah, I'm interested to see Mobley. By the way, Dane, congratulations! You got Kiki Vandeweghe on the Cerebro team.
Yep, no lie, you were like second or third thought when that happened. I was like, because the first time I really heard that name was from you.
So little bit of we talk all things Mavs and all things basketball, and since you probably weren't even born yet, but Dallas's first ever first round pick was Kiki Vandeweghe, and he goes, "I ain't playing in Dallas," and he forced a trade to Denver. And
Yeah.
every time Denver came to Dallas, the entire Dallas crowd booed Kiki Vandeweghe the entire game every time he touched the ball. So he was like enemy number one for a while until he retired. But longtime reunion rowdies, they still remember getting the Heisman, pose. Like the Eli Manning, I'm not going to LA, I want to go to New York, or the Colts, But
And that's
yeah,
crazy.
Kiki Vandeweghe has some of the I'm full of trivia, but he's like one of the first known Mavs, even before Brad Davis, that was kind of lore. So.
And back to you, Dame. I don't know if you had a chance to see the Warriors against the Trailblazers game. They beat the brakes off the Trailblazers. Do you think they're gonna make? Oh, I'm talking about the Warriors. Do you think they'll be a playoff team this year, or you think it's just smoke and mirrors because they beat a bad Trailblazers team?
Listen, man, I don't know if you got Buddy Hield, right? You got Buddy Hield, you got Stephen Curry, you got Lindy Waters, Andrew Wiggins. Those guys can, if they can be consistent shooting that three, like kind of like what we saw in that Boston Celtics game recently, where they shot, I think it was like 63s. It is not unheard of that you could probably get away with doing that in the season and possibly winning that. But I think the West is super stacked. You got Minnesota, you got the Lakers with JJ Redick. Those guys look fired up. Anthony Davis looked insane in that first game.
Wasn't that a great block that he had on Rudy Gobert?
Oh,
yes.
It was.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about the Lakers too. As far as that, them having the surprise entry of Bronny and his dad in that game, do you think Bronny will continue to be on the team? Because the word is out they're going to send him down to the G League. And again, we're talking about the beginning of the season. But as far as the Lakers go, Bronny, will he play more games this year, and how far you think the Lakers will go this year?
So with Bronny, I think the noise should be quieted about that he's on the team because of his dad. The guy played a great role, had great role scores in that preseason matchup. You've seen him be able to develop that shot and just his ability to always get downhill and finish at the rim. Plus, he's really there to play defense. He's there to stop the ball, make the right pass, and score. So I think that you end up seeing Bronny in the rotation. Maybe not playoff rotation, but in the playoffs, trust is also the most important thing, right? So having that trust with Bron, with JJ, it's not unlikely that you see him in a rotation spot come playoff time.
And then this is the last question for you, and this is on a cerebral spectrum. With the metrics, where does Bronny fit in the metrics as far as silver, gold, and that perspective?
Bronny had I believe it was a 400 RAM score, which put him right at the average player score for the NBA preseason. So on the CRAM scale, that was around a 5. When you're seeing great production out of role players, that CRAM score is going to be between a 6 and a 7. And then, being Bronny, if you're that 9th, 10th spot in the rotation or that 8th spot, that 400 RAM score is going to keep you there, right? It's going to keep you because you're able to be trusted on the court and you can be in service of winning without having to get points, which he just excels on the defensive side, has low fouls per game, has at least a steal. So that combination will definitely could possibly keep him in that rotation.
Oh, wow. Because I was hearing the rumblings in the forest about him going down to the G League just to get.
Oh, yeah. I definitely believe like going to the G League in the beginning of the season, perfect for him. Going back and forth, getting that, those two-way guys, they'll play, sometimes they'll play a G League game and then get called up just to fill a roster spot for the NBA game that night or the following day, right? So that getting Bronny, pushing the pace, because the pace in the NBA is different. It's 82 games, getting that conditioning down. I think, I truly believe Redick has a plan for him.
Yeah, and he's on that super contract anyway as a rookie, guaranteed. So lucky him.
Right. I mean, you're not going to pay someone unless they plan on
playing them.
The G League is a great place to develop players if the coach, as long as it's not run like an AAU team where someone's trying to build the statistics up. Like I saw Jake Hardy play for the Legends. Jaden Hardy, and they had him playing shooting guard, and I kept telling Wild Dog, like, they need to be playing him at point. He's not going to be big enough to play shooting guard. And you could see he could score, but the Legends coach didn't do him any favors. They had Nashawn Wright, the fourth, playing point guard because the coach was trying to keep his job and win games instead of develop players. So it's always a balance. But because he didn't force him to play point guard, he's had to learn in the NBA the nuances of a point guard versus a shooting guard. And I think it delayed his actual growth development, that if in the G League, if they had forced him to play point guard, then all those mistakes are not nearly amplified, not under microscope. But
and we could continue with you too, Bob, as far as the opening night for the NBA. What game surprised you? And some teams are just still the same, and some teams are going to make a progression. What teams in your mind made a progression, and what team also kind of fell back when you kind of look at the spectrum of all things? I have a game in mind that I could talk about in a second, but I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, so I had two games. I want to comment on the Golden State game. That's the most points any Warriors team has scored on opening night in the history of the Warriors. It's also the most points Portland's ever given up. So 140 points. Warriors have scored 162, but for an opening night game. But Stephen Curry is still Steph. We saw that in the Olympics. It's just how consistent can the other role players? They're going to have hot nights. They're going to be a team full of THJs. And for Dame, what we talked about Tim Hardaway Jr., how he shoots in a game or out of a game, and we nicknamed the flamethrower. But the two games that kind of caught my eye was, I don't know if you caught the highlights of the Grizzlies and the Jazz.
I did, Edie. He's nice.
Did Ja Morant look like a monster or what to you?
Well, what did he have? Morant had 22 points. It wasn't too bad.
There wasn't so much the points as he had dunks where I swear this part of his chest was at the rim.
He got hops. I mean, he got jets on his sneakers somewhere.
And he's got 7'3", 7'2", 7'4", Zach Edey. So
that's my rookie of the year candidate.
That both of us, we had them.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see the Orlando. You and I are pretty high on Orlando Magic, but I read that Bonchero scored a lot of points, and it's kind of funny because
he had 33 to be exact. That's my guy. That's my new favorite all-time player.
The year he got drafted, they were like debating between Jabari Smith and Banchero, and everybody thought for sure they were going to take Jabari Smith. So that turned out to be. The other one was the Wolves and the Kings. Did you happen to catch that game?
I did. It was actually a nice little game. In the ending, it just was like too close for comfort. And I just couldn't believe what happened in the end. I mean, come on, man. You got to make sure you win.
Yeah, so both of those games were decided by like 2 points, 2 or 3 points. That's the reason they caught my eye. Like everybody's expecting the T-Wolves to, they made a big trade to get rid of Karl Anthony Towns' contract and get under the apron, getting Randall and DiVincenzo. They mesh, I mean, Randall does what Randall does, he's going to score, but those were two games that just kind of really just popped for me. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in seeing early in the season with the Grizz Jazz. There's two things. They're going to be watching John Morant and can he keep his head?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Troy Aikman said, I gotta get head right with ball. And then the Jazz. I mean, Jazz signed Lauri Markkanen to the. So are they rebuilding, or are they trying to make the playoffs, or are they stuck on that play-in border? It's like they're kind of almost in no man's land. They got one player out of that Donovan Mitchell trade that turned out to be better than expected.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's tough when you get a guy like that. They can 20 or more a game. And I think didn't he make the All-Star that year?
Who, Donovan Mitchell?
No, I'm Lauri Markkanen.
I think he did. Can't remember what year that was, but I probably could look it up.
Yeah, this is like his third year, and they still got Jordan Clarkson, and they've got some draft picks. But you know, you were talking about the Lakers, and I'm surprised you didn't bring this up because for the last 2 or 3 weeks you've been promoing this guy more than Bronny. Dalton Connect.
Oh, I was going to ask Dame about Dalton Connect as far as the matrix on him. That dude is, man, he got a strap on him for sure.
Well, in a preseason game he had
33.
I can't how many points, but his last preseason game he went off.
Yeah, and that's what made him get into the lineup. And I think he has a better chance of playing more games than Bronny.
But you know, he could be on the low end. He's Dougie McBuckets McDermott. On the high end, he's Reggie Miller. We'll see. In the middle is kind of Buddy Hield. So, I mean, he is a sharpshooter, but can he maintain that efficiency? And I don't know if he can create his own look or create his own shot, but he's definitely a catch and shoot guy. And anytime you got LeBron on your team, it's going to gravity between him and AD. That's gravity. He just load it up, knock it down, and like I've been looking at his shooting percentages, and it's like you usually don't see that. Now it was preseason, so we'll see when the rubber hits the road. We'll see.
Yeah, he scored. It was against the Suns, and that was 35 points for him, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, and Anthony Davis also had 35 points in that same game. So it was a pretty close preseason game, which went into overtime.
And you know, the Mavericks started their own podcast called Dunk the Funk, so I'll give a shout out to them. Maybe they
did.
But how about an opening game for Klay Thompson? 3 steals, 7 rebounds, 6 of 9 shooting. The most 3-pointers made by a Maverick in a Maverick debut.
Yep.
Then to be a rookie, just a Maverick debut, but you know, he's gonna have some nights where he's 0 for 10, and you'll be thinking he's just another overpaid guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. And then you're gonna have other nights where you're going, where was that guy last week? And can't miss. But man, I wanted him before Stephen Curry there. I told my friend, I said they should go trade for Klay Thompson because he just mechanics wise, his shot. I don't know if the cerebral stats bear this out, but his mechanics, he's just so consistent and just so fluid. And I mean, I think one of the years they went to the finals, they said he took the least amount of dribbles in the NBA for every player, even though, you know, he averaged 12, 15 shots a game, maybe more. But he doesn't have to dribble a lot to get a shot off.
Nah, he has that motion offense that work well with him in Golden State. I didn't have an opportunity to check a lot on the WNBA games. I should.
Shame on you. We've been promoting the WNBA for 3 or 4 months now. We're going to get you on board.
I'm not mad at all at it, man. But And I was checking out a lot of the highlights and some of the scores on those games. Every game was either 5 to 2 point difference. Dame, did you get a chance to see any of the WNBA 2024 championship?
So what I loved about it kind of, and it goes back to the Liberty have been building this team for like the last 3 years, right? They went out, Joe Tsai's wife, the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, ended up purchasing the team. They ended up going the chartering jets, which ended up in fines from the WNBA. They went out and grabbed Breanna Stewart from overseas. They went out and they drafted Sabrina Ionesco. They have Jonquel Jones, but I think that what showed is that put money into the stadium, put money into the players, have a plan, and they went and got themselves a championship this year. Now, a player that I think was highly underrated that a lot of people didn't talk about was a player by the name of Leonie Fiebich. This player, I think, was a difference maker in that Minnesota series as well as with Sabrina Ionesco. Fiebich, just highly efficient player, had 13% usage on 11 points a game at 54% from the field, had 2.3 3-point makes per game at 52%. I mean, that's if you're shooting at a 52% clip with that many attempts, you're going to get your plus minus is always going to be on the plus side. But I also thought that Sabrina kind of got some flack for her defensive. People were saying that she's not a great defensive player, but Sabrina did her job. You know, when you're scoring, when you're the primary scorer, and then on the defensive side, you're just at least being good enough in front of your man. But she averaged 1.6 steals per game on just 2 fouls. So I didn't get the criticism that she ended up getting from the people at large. But yeah,
the same criticism they give Luka, and in the playoffs last year, you saw Luka play on the ball defense, which we hadn't seen for 6 years. We had never seen that. Yeah, but Sabrina, I think, the Olympics did a lot of teams good. They resynced and got chemistry and made good runs at the end. But man, kudos. WNBA, they said, hey, we're not gonna. The collective bargaining agreement is good but they opted out after next year, and they're like, they want some of this, because look what Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark have done as far as publicity to the league. But Sabrina, the one that was in a 3-point shooting contest at the All-Star game with Stephen Curry a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
I believe you're correct. Yeah.
And what you're going to see, and what's super cool, I just love the liberty and what they did, because now you have these 3 expansion teams coming in Golden State, Portland, and I forgot the other team, maybe Toronto, I think. But those, especially in Golden State, they have the cap room, they have the money to go out and spend, and that's why it's huge with this new CBA, because the CBA it's a free for all now, right? There's no salary cap. So whatever team has the most money can now duplicate what the Liberty went and did by going out and spending that amount of money to get Breanna Stewart back in the States, right? To upgrade those facilities, to pay Sabrina. So watch out for Golden State. Golden State could be a champ. They're looking to be champions in 3 to 4 years. Nice.
And you think having no salary cap is going to hurt or help the league?
I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a magnified big 3, right? So when Bron went to Miami, that was great basketball. I mean, even though it was Miami, it was Bron going to the championship every year. Super teams were being built, and that was during a salary cap, right? So now we could see some high-level competition with stars, right? Seeing stars being made, the Angel Reeses, Brittany
Griner getting some publicity.
Right. So I think it's a fun time for women's basketball. It's fun.
And your prediction for next year in WNBA champion?
Next, Nafisi Akali or Nafisi, like one, Asia Wilson is the best player in the NBA, and it's not even close. It's Asia Wilson and then everybody else. You talk about the run that the Aces have went on the last 4 years, right? Maybe a little bit not left, a little bit gas is left, was left in the tank. Kelsey Plum didn't play that well in the playoffs. The other supporting cast around Asia Wilson didn't play that well, but Asia Wilson still played like Asia Wilson. So I would not count out the Aces any year that Asia Wilson's on that team.
And the Las Vegas Aces is pretty new, aren't they? Like they've been around for like 5 years or so.
Right.
Yeah. So because that's crazy how they've been there in the league that little bit of time and won that many championships. What, 3?
And it goes back to something Wild Dog and I brought up, organization. It starts with the CEO, the GM, the coach, general manager. And I don't know, it's kind of a statistic, but when the Wings moved here, I started following them. And of course, they were in Tulsa before that. But they've had like 6 or 7 first-round picks, high first-round picks the last 3 years. And
Liz Cambage played for the Wings, and I just don't know what happened to her.
Yeah, Liz didn't want to be here, and they traded her, and they also traded Marina Mobley when they got Ariki, and they one of the others is on the championship team, but they've had like a top 5 pick 3-4 straight years in a row, and multiple top 7 picks over the last 3 years. They've fired a lot of blanks, but I think the Liberty have a great chance to repeat because we don't know who will move, what trades will be made in off season or draft, but I think there'll be more eyeballs on it. The comment I had is look what the Lynx had a chance to win. I know 2 of the games went overtime. Had they won, they would have been the first team. Now, Houston team doesn't exist anymore. The Seattle team, both of them won 4 championships, so did the Lynx. So that would have given them 5. But this was the first championship for New York. And that first championship, as the Mavs fans know, the first championship's everything because flags fly forever. Rangers won a championship last year, and then they sucked this year. And you're like, yeah, but look at that, we won. See that one up there? We won last year. They have been the Liberty have been to the WNBA Finals 5 times. So
That's amazing.
First time to win, and they came up against Aces. Here's the one that will grab. It's the first basketball championship since the '69 Knicks in the NBA.
For New York, the city of New York?
Yes.
Dang.
It's the first championship in any sport in New York since the Yankees in 2009.
When did the Giants win it?
2013. 2013 when the Cowboys were 13-3. So that was the Giants would have been probably the newest.
Yeah.
But even that even using the Giants, you're still talking over a decade. So you think about Boston and New York rivalry, how many championships Boston has won on all those sports. And so, I mean, at least a decade, almost 2 decades in some of the sports since New York's won a championship. Okay, people are like, well, women's sports don't count. It still means a lot to the city. They gave them a ticker tape parade. So I wouldn't discount the fact that they won it. That means a lot to the city. So congratulations, Liberty, Liberty, Liberty.
Free promotion. Now, facts. Liberty did a good job, man. And the first game they played, they did go to overtime, and the Lynx squeaked it out with a 2-point lead. And then the final game that sealed it for Liberty also went to overtime, and the Liberty squeaked it out with 5-point lead. So this was a good tight series all throughout. And who do you predict is going to win it next year?
I think the Liberty will be right back there.
Oh, you think so? Oh, God.
I think you got the Ace is always going to be there unless they trade some of their. And Feast, as Dame said in the Feast Collins, they call her Feast. That they're going to put him there. But you had another player, a high draft pick player, to Caitlin Clark and the big girl that got drafted the year before by the Indiana Fever. Like they were like this close to making it second round in a second-year player and a rookie. So, they had a piece or two, and now you got a top four that is pretty heavy loaded.
Not facts. And I don't know how far our wing is going to go, because they seem like they always choke out in games they should win. I mean, like, come on, man, you should win these games.
They didn't play any defense.
Yeah, that, and plus, if that be the case, I was going to say, if that be the case, if they don't play defense, it's all about the top, who's coaching them. And if the coaching is not good, that's going to be a problem.
Coach Trammell, she got fired. I told Wild Dog in the middle of the summer that they for 2 years the middle of the lane is just wide open. Like they focused on trying to get to the 3-point and guard the 3-point shooters. They literally someone go to the top of the key all the way to the bucket and not get touched. They're slow. They don't play defense. They're slow. They're not really athletic, but they've got some shooters.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have taken Reese and at least had star power name that would help them sell out. By the way, they're sold out for next year in the lower level already, so they'll be moving to the arena in a couple years downtown.
Oh, nice. So speaking of New York, and this player we're going to talk about next he's actually from Jamaica. He's about 7 foot tall, and he's been hooping. Started in the 80s a little bit, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And Bob, let me give you your thoughts on the career and the legacy of one Patrick Ewing Sr.
So, Dame, I'll just you'll love this because last year we had Mount Rushmore and we named four players every team. This year, to try to use that same thing, we do a player legacy every week. And I come at it with a lot of stats and then kind of my take on it. So here goes with the stats. He played 17 seasons. That's a long career for a tall, big guy.
The center for sure.
Career numbers: 21 points a game, 9.8 rebounds a game, 1.9 assists, and 2.4 blocks per game. Career 2.4 blocks per game. He was Rookie of the Year in 85-86. So here's a trivia question for you, Coach Mike. Who was the pick? He was the number 1 pick in the 85 draft. Who was number 2?
85? It had to been.
See, he played at this university.
OU?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Mike would have been the number 1 pick if Ewing hadn't. He played it all 4 years. So, 11 times on All-Star. 8 times he was voted in the top 10 of MVP. Never won an MVP, but he was in a voting 10 times. 7 times All-NBA. 1 time he made first team. Now we're talking about the Magic Bird Jordan years, okay? So there was a lot of players that were really good. 9 times NBA first team defense. Think about that for a minute. 9 times first team NBA defense.
And that's first team. That's crazy. 9 times in 17 years?
in 17. 5 times voted for Defensive Player of the Year. Never won one. We talked about Gary the Glove Payton winning one last year or last week, but 5 times he had votes for Defensive Player of the Year.
Mm.
10 years out of 17, 10 years he had at least one high scoring game of 40 points. And two of those were 50-point games.
Yeah, he was hooping.
He made one NBA Finals, as you may remember. The point guard was Derek Harper, and John Starks was the shooting guard, and he shot 0 for 18. 0 for 18, shot him out of the game.
Damn.
He did make the Eastern Conference Finals. Let's see if Dame, this goes to you. Do you know what year he only made the Eastern Conference Finals twice? But so the one was the year when they lost early. What was the second one? What was the team, and who was the big name player on that team?
When he made the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah, no, let's go to Dame. We'll see. We'll test his basketball knowledge here about the second time later in his career, Patrick Ewing made the Eastern Conference Finals.
Was it against Indiana?
Yes, sir.
Was it? So who was the superstar player on the other team?
Yeah, who was the superstar player on the other team?
Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller. Now, do you know what year? You're 2 for 2. I'll give you a hint.
94.
Jason Kidd and the Brooklyn Nets made it in 01 and 02. So you got to remember the Lakers won 3 in a row with Kobe and Shaq during that time.
So this is at the latter part of Ewing's career.
Yeah. You want to go 3 for 3, or you want to let me tell you?
Yeah, tell me. Go ahead, tell me.
2000.
Oh,
So
okay.
he started.
I was going to say 99, 2000.
He started his career in 85-86 season. So this is 99, 2000. This was a 37-year-old Patrick Ewing that took the Knicks to the Eastern Conference Finals, and it took Reggie Miller and his shooting and the Pacers to knock out the Knicks. So I like Ewing because I was in college at the time, and Wayman Tisdale was playing, and we were supposed to. Back then, it was they just expanded from 32 teams to 48. And so the first 16, there were 16 teams that got a bye. And Oklahoma had a highly ranked team, and they played the Dayton Flyers. And a guy named Roosevelt scored 42 points and knocked Oklahoma out. Had Oklahoma won, they would have played the Patrick Ewing Georgetown team. And when you want to talk about classic NCAA Final Fours, Georgetown played in several of those. They played when NC State won it all. They were there when they played against Houston. They were TV favorites when streaming wasn't around. Not many people had cable. You just waited to see what NBC would put on. And so I followed Patrick Ewing in college because I was in college at that time, and you didn't go into the paint with Patrick Ewing. In fact, if you remember, the first 5 shots, he got called for goaltending in the NCAA Final Four because he knocked it out in the next year. So he had range, he had the jump hook, he had the fadeaway. He'd go in. I mean, he played defense. I mean, think about averaging for 17 years, the average of 2.4 blocks per game. There's probably, Dane probably knows, but last year there was only 2 players that were even close to that, Wemby being one of them. But 2.4 over a career, you're talking, that's Mutombo, who we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago. There's Kareem maybe. Well, there's. I mean, it may take two hands, but it won't take all 10 fingers to count the number of players that average 2.4 blocks for their career.
That's crazy. Dang. And I know you probably wasn't even born when he was drafted. But what are your thoughts on the legacy of Patrick Ewing Sr.?
Patrick Ewing. So Patrick Ewing for me, just dominant, right? Dominant scorer, elite scorer, and dominant defensively. That combination is going to always have him up there in at least the top 20 in the mid to late part of his career, but definitely in the top 10 in the beginning of his career. Back to Victor Wembanyama's last year, actually had 3.6 blocks per game. Yeah. Yes.
No, it was close to 4. It was almost close to 4 for a while.
Right. But Patrick Ewing doing that in the age, right, at 2.4, where there wasn't 3-point shooting. So imagine how, and the elite scorers of the era, right, the Michael Jordans, you can go on. He is stifling. He is that defensive presence that is, blocking shots at some of the greats, right? So super pumped for him, and his career is just it's etched in stone.
Yeah, him playing in Georgetown was an amazing feat because the coaching he had, Don Thompson, if I'm correct, coached them very well, man, and he had some really good squads back then. And I was pretty young at the time, but I watched a few games here or there, but I wasn't really into basketball as a youngster. I got maybe my mid-teen years when I started watching basketball. But Patrick Ewing, yeah, him and the guy from Indiana, the center, those two always battled a lot when I watched the playoffs back then. Those two, and then you had Ronnie Cycling, and then you had Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning. All of them battled Patrick Ewing back then, and it was like
You had Bill Cartwright, and you also had Daugherty that played for the Indiana team that you're talking about, Brad Daugherty.
Right. So he had his moments in time where he had to face up with get some really bruising centers, and it's not a lot you can say about the centers we have nowadays because a lot of them are pick and pop, or like Porzingis and we mentioned Wembanyama. Not a lot of them play the paint as much as Patrick Ewing did in that era. But it is what it is, man. He actually had a great career, like Kane said, and I think the legacy speaks for itself, man, for him having the stats that he had for that many years. So
he's almost equivalent to like a Jared Allen, right? A Jared Allen defensive like beast, and can get 20 in the paint if he needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're speaking of present centers, for sure.
He was a strong presence. Shaq hadn't come along yet, but Patrick Ewing was one of the stronger, and he wasn't slow of foot. He was pretty athletic, and he went on to coach. He's been an assistant coach on several NBA teams, and he actually went back to Georgetown and coached them for a while. He didn't do too well. I don't know if he's on the staff now, but I remember seeing him on the sidelines as assistant coach for several teams, and you're like, huh? You're like, he's not the kind of player, but he's done like Dikembe Mutombo. And props to the Denver Nuggets, okay? They put number 55 on the sideline, baseline, and gave a tape on Denver's opening game. So props to Denver for doing that, honoring Dikembe Mutombo. But Patrick Ewing did not to the level of Mutombo, but he did a lot of civic stuff. I think other than the scoring difference, defensively, they were very similar.
R.I.P. Dikembe Mutombo.
Facts.
So I know you got current players in Cerebro, but it'd be interesting to see what Patrick Ewing's numbers would come out in your AI analysis.
No, facts. So shifting gears. So let me take you guys. I'm gonna give you a tour of my memory. So it was maybe 4 years ago, possibly, or maybe yeah, it's right. It's like maybe it's been 6 years ago.
6.
6 years, yeah. And I was coaching in the Carrollton League, right? We were coaching pretty much middle schoolers at the time, I believe, and my team was pretty hot. We were doing pretty good, and we faced off against this pretty powerful team, which was like they were number one at the time, I believe, and
Undefeated.
undefeated. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were undefeated. So, um, so we went out there and we played hard. I mean, we was up for like about 20 points at one point in time, and then we kind of backed off and almost lost the game, but we pulled it out in the end because we played pretty much stall ball, basically, not trying to give the other team an opportunity to go down and score because there was one guy on their team who was hard to stop. And me coaching, I was doing my best to make sure we win. And my opposing coach was Boogey Bob. Yeah, that guy right there. That's the first time I met him, and it's by coincidence. The team he was coaching, the coach that he was filling in for the head coach at the time, and Byron is his name. And me and Byron coached together two years in a row. And the first year we coached together, it was pretty much my first time coaching. These were youngsters. Give me an idea of how coaching you should go, and I learned a lot from Byron. So the first year we coached together, and that was the first time my son ever played organized basketball, and we went all the way to the championship and lost. The second time, the following year, we went back to the championship and won it, which was amazing. And the squad was pretty dope. We had a great little bunch of kids, and it's so exciting when you watch basketball. But that's how me and Bob was connected by Byron. So with this segment, we're gonna kind of dig into Mr. Boogey Bob and let the audience kind of get a little bit of background about Bob. So Bob, just to start out, man, tell everybody where you were born in, and I got a series of questions I'll ask you after that.
Well, I was born in Wichita, Kansas, so technically I'm a Jayhawker. But my parents moved early, so I grew up in Oklahoma, and pretty much paid my own way through college. So choices were slim and none, and I went to OU. And so I got to I didn't get my height until after high school because I was 17 when I graduated.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so I went from like 5'7", 5'8". By the end of my freshman year, I was like 6 foot, and I
Nice.
would shoot buckets outside and play horse a lot, but never really played basketball. I was in band and played hockey as a youth, but I'd shoot like this, and I can't tell you how many times Spalding was written across my forehead. And so when I was playing hockey, my dad always said, pick your favorite player and mimic and emulate them. We had skill training and 1 hour practices in hockey. A lot of it translates to basketball. So since I was tall, naturally the uh, intramural sports at OU, you get picked to play a lot. Well, didn't really know how to dribble. I had limited range and got blocked a lot. So like one of my best friends and I played a lot of one-on-one, and I would go in the gym and just play. A lot of times, OU players after football season, they would go into the field house. It was open to everybody, and so I got to play with elite athletes at the field house gym there in OU, and one of them was Dewey Selman. So uh, they saw I hustled, and I eventually got better. And 76 is the earliest I can remember watching the game. That was the undefeated Indiana uh, Hoosiers that won the NCAA, the only undefeated team to win a championship.
Hmm.
Uh, and from then on, it was always watched Louisville, Kentucky. Uh, I liked Denny Crum in Louisville better than Joby Hall in Kentucky. But OU, my middle of college, OU got Wayman Tisdale, so I got the privilege of watching Wayman Tisdale play for 2 years, and I graduated, and then I got to see him play in the regional tournament here in Dallas. So my basketball journey actually started by just playing hockey first, and then studying and being a student of the game. So 40 plus years of doing that. But yeah, grew up as when people, and I've been in Texas 40 years now. So when people say, "Oh, you're from Oklahoma," and I'm like, "Well, technically I'm a Jayhawk." It's my parents' fault that I grew up in Oklahoma. I got to Texas as soon as I could.
Back. So going back to your basketball career, what made you get into coaching as far as the youth go, and what was your overall record when it comes to coaching?
So Byron, who you coach with, and I worked together, and we've had Maverick season. This is the 25th year we've had Maverick season tickets. And so occasionally I would ask Byron, do you want to go to games? And the other basketball fans at work, did they want to go? And he goes, well, I need to take both my boys. I had not met his sons at the time. Uh, so the year after the championship, we added a third seat because it was always empty and changing. We had a third seat. So I sold him some games, and then he started going to some games. And I had been doing some volunteer work, and that fell through. He goes, well, won't you come on out to practice? So I got there at about the middle of the 2-hour practice and didn't know any of the kids. I knew 2 of his sons were on the team, but didn't know which one they are. But after they played, I showed my last championship ring, and they were all cooling over it and all. And but I gave each one of them a nickname, and so one of the kids, I said, well, you can hit this free throw, I'll call you Money. And of course, his 2 sons, Jonathan was his older, he got the nickname Jaguar, but his younger son, Justin, he's one of these style guys, kind of like a Russell Westbrook and a kid, it's like you wouldn't think it go together, but he's like, I don't care, like sandals and red socks, green pants, and yellow or brown shirt, and maybe an all colored Africa hat, and you're kind of like, dude. So I called him, and he would make in the layup drill, he would make all these fancy moves and then miss the shot, and so I called him Fancy Pants.
Yeah.
But the advantage of having played in the OU Fieldhouse Sports is you learn to trash talk, and you learn how to give back, and like $1 million move and a penny finish. As I played against more and more and got better and better, there's one guy he could out leap me, and he was quicker. He liked to shoot. He liked to dunk it. He was about 6'4", I was 6 foot. But he had a shimmy, and then he would go right and then left. And the first time, yeah, he got by me. Second time, I was the third time before the shimmy, I saw that shoulder dip, and I just stopped both feet, planted both feet, and jumped straight up as high as I could. And bear in mind, he could jump about that much higher, than I could. But he jumped up into me, and I got all ball. And he goes, foul, foul, because he was so embarrassed. His teammates came up and said that wasn't no foul. I coined this phrase. I said, well, that call was so cheap, I gave you a penny and got change back.
Damn. I haven't.
I actually wrote down your line. I hope you don't mind.
I don't
move with the penny finish. That's fire. I'm stealing that.
Yeah, that call was so cheap, I gave a penny and got change back. I've used that a couple times, but the football players, OU was nationally ranked back then, and so they taught you toughness, and you just they can tell you love the game, and I've always just loved the game. When it's played right, it's very poised for emotion. So when Byron asked me to coach with him, and I was like, yeah, I coached when I first moved to Dallas in '84, I coached Little League hockey. So,
Mm,
I'd had some coaching uh, experience to a degree, but uh, it more than just teaching them the passion and love for the game is just being able to pour into teenagers uh, and help mold them at that 11, 12, 13, 14 years of old. That
facts.
that someone that shows them that they care, but also going to push them. And we've talked about it many times. As far as
Hmm.
the record, we were the first year we won one game, and that was the very first week of his coaching. I was like, "I'm your good luck charm," and then we lost all.
Damn.
The next year we were 7-1 and finished second place in the playoffs. We lost by 2 points. We had a 1 point lead, and one of our tall players reached around, got called for a foul. It wasn't a reaching call, and it was the ref standing right in front of him. I don't ever blame refs for losing the game, but the ref standing right in front of the player that stole it didn't make the call, but the back judge did. And
Dang.
Byron was going ballistic. Well, they got they got they got the ball in 2 free throws, and we wound up losing by 1 point. And to celebrate, we bought. Byron and I paid for tickets, and we took each player and one parent and gave them tickets to Maverick basketball game, and that became a tradition.
Oh, nice.
Then the year I met you, uh, we were 7-1 regular season, finished first, and we won the championship that year. Uh, the
And the
next year,
only blemish was from our team.
and then the next year we were 7-1 again, and we finished third. Uh,
Oh,
in the game that would have got us to the championship, we lost by one bucket. Uh,
dang.
we won the three. We won third place because our best shooter was, Craig. Uh, he hit a three to get about a 6 point lead, and we held on and won that one 55-53. Uh, then the next, so we finished second, first, and then third. And then the next year, Byron's sons had graduated. They were playing. He wanted to see their high school games, and I uh, I was coaching 9 and 10-year-olds, and
Oh,
it was
nice.
like herding cats.
Yeah, thanks.
Uh, and when Byron's always telling me, "I can use the help," it's like I didn't quite get it until after halfway through the first year. But 10 boys that got a lot of energy and don't necessarily want to do the drill or know how to do the drill.
Hmm.
It's kind of hard to keep 10 all occupied. With two people, it's a lot easier. So uh, we didn't win a game at all. And then the following year, Byron and I would coach sixth graders, uh, and all the way up to the playoffs, we had only won one game. We'd lost several by 2 or 4 points. And
Dang.
the week right before the playoffs, uh, I gave a speech. I told the kids, I said, "I guarantee you that team does not want to see you in the playoffs." And sure enough, we lost. We got a technical. One of our guys got the ball, had the call, out of bounds. We were ahead by one, but he pushed the other kid. So it was a
Mm,
technical foul, and they got the ball and they hit a shot. I think they won by like 1 or 2 points. But we beat them and we went to overtime and drew up a play, and it worked, and we got that bucket, and we celebrated. We got we got like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, because we'd gone in over 3 4 minutes while the first team was resting, and so they blew us out in the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, 8 minute quarters, and
dang.
but the other coach came and he goes, you and Byron said you're definitely the most improved team. He said, and we were hoping you would knock out that other team, because that other team, they just throw up bricks and they would go in, And he was glad that we knocked them out. But their coach they had two really good players, and it was to get anywhere near the 3 point line, jack it up, and then the other three guys just crashed the boards. And There was no rhyme or reason to the offense. Just even hope, we call it. But that's kind of my basketball. And then last year I didn't coach.
So here's my last question, and this is what everybody probably was thinking on their mind. Where did the name Boogey Bob come from?
Oh, I need to write a book about it. Uh, I actually tried out for the Maniacs in August of 2004.
And for those who don't know, that's the Dallas Mavericks sideline entertainment. So
Big
Mav Maniacs, what they call them.
big beefy boys.
Yes.
And there was 40 people in groups of 5. Anyhow, they had cameras there to film it. I wasn't feeling good, showed no person. I didn't make the first round, but my group together and helped them practice. Well, 6 months later, on a new job, I got tickets from a vendor, and we were sitting center court, literally center court, like where Jeff Van Gundy was. I was like 2 seats behind where Jeff Van Gundy was. They
Nice.
were playing the Lakers, and they got up early, which is very rare. And I remember the song. So for years, I set up. So I'm like, why do people jump up and down when they're on the camera? You're on the camera because you were dancing, or they look up and I'm on camera. And so there was a cameraman right there at center court. They played "Who Let the Dogs Out," and the person I took to the game with, they said, "You're on the jumbotron," and I just acted like I didn't know, and I just kind of amped it up. Well, later that night, they convinced me to send an email with a picture to Mark Cuban. 3 days later, the Mavs are saying, "Hey, we want you to come back. The fans love you. Mark Cuban love you. Pick 2 games." And I'm like, okay. They didn't tell me when to get up or what. Just do your thing, look natural. But in between the first and second game, my boss found out about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get fired. Those tickets were more expensive than we're allowed to accept. But him and this vendor, the vendor told him, and he's like, you got to come up with a name. You got to come up with a T-shirt. You got to come up with a website. You could be the next San Diego Chicken. And I'm like, it's just, and I've only been to one. So for a solid week, and he just become my boss. For a solid week, he's like, first question every day. Have you come up with a name yet? Have you come up with a name yet? For 3 or 4 days, it was like, nope, got to have your name in it. Nope. And I had put on the whiteboard, Boogie Shoes. Got to have your name in it. So Boogie Shoes Bob. He's like, that's too long. And as I was racing shoes, there was Boogie Bob. So I went home tonight to see if a website was bought. And the IE spelling was bought, even though there was nothing on it at the time. And so when I came back to work the next day, he goes, well, that was such a perfect name. And anyhow, I came home and looked at the thesaurus, and there was a GGY spelling and a GGEY spelling. So that I came up with Boogie Bob. And I got a shirt similar to this one, and put it on long sleeve and danced the second game. And that turned into 10 games, and here it is 20 years later, and they still get me on the screen dancing. So I tell people they're a lot better dancers. It's just the enthusiasm. And I just, my hope and prayer from the very beginning was hopefully they see the Lord's light shine out through me. And if it makes them laugh, that's what it's all about. It was never about being on the camera. I didn't want to be shy. I wanted to show them that, like, I didn't make it in the. So I ignored the camera and just did my thing. And when the crowd went crazy, I go off the crowd noise now to know whether I'm on or not.
Oh, wow. So how many times do you think they captured you on the Jumbotron?
For the last 20 years, at least once every season, except for a couple. But that first year, probably a dozen times, including the playoffs. So I've only got a copy of one, but I've been on ESPN in a clip that they showed 4 times. I've been on TNT twice, 4 local TV radio stations the Mavs set up. They did an interview. But there's a clip. I got it on VHS tape. I think I put it digital. I'm gonna have to make a short on it. Well, we'll have Cerebral Sports analyze it. But everybody knows da 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 da. There's a 1 second clip. Yeah,
Am I doing it?
Is that the
Macarena.
Macarena?
Yeah.
Reverse lawnmower.
Reverse.
The move that got me was this move.
I can do that. Okay.
That became popular during the bubble, but Mark Cuban did it on Dancing with the Stars. But Dirk came off the court trying to figure out how to do it. He's like, how does he do that? And it's from Saturday Night Live, Saturday Night Fever, the movie. So, I mean, it's like, it took me a few years to realize, but I grew up Fonzarelli and Happy Days was the big show, and everybody was cool like the Fonz. Hey. Well, the younger generation, it was that 70s show with Adam Kutcher. So I grew up in the 70s and dressed like somebody from the 70s, and I was dancing like somebody from the 70s. So, it's popular. I've had people that are 21, 20. I've been watching you since I was a kid. And I'm like, okay.
That's what Ryan said. Remember, Ryan said, hey, remember you?
Yeah. And like when it's a female, you're like, oh, I might have a chance. And then they're like, I've seen you since I was 4 years old. And you're like, oh. But in the first few years, I'd be at the gas station and somebody's like, Boogey Bob, or be in a restaurant, they come up, do you like basketball? Do you go to the Maverick games? Are you Boogey Bob? So my mom's been with me, sign it. And I tell people, I'm just an ordinary fan who believes in Jesus and somehow make people laugh and smile. That's what it's about.
Man, salute to Boogey Bob, guys. Bob, we appreciate you always chiming in, man. Not the last segment, but again, I appreciate you, man. Your career as far as youth basketball, being on the Jumbotron and ice hockey. A lot of people didn't know all that stuff. Now it's out there for the public to consume, man. And if you guys ever want to just give him a shout out, he has his own channel on YouTube called Boogey Bob. So get over there, give him a shout out, and hopefully he'll chime you back. Usually he will, but that's an amazing story, man. And man, thanks for sharing it. And I did want to get this episode taken care of so that everybody can see more about Boogey Bob. So moving on to the next and our last topic, and we're going to talk about the best NBA passers currently. And there's a lot of good passers, and there's a Hoops hype list that has all the top 5 passers, maybe the top 30 guards of 2020, 24-25 season. Dame, have you had a chance to kind of review your thoughts? I mean, you got Cerebro as your backup, and you can look at all the guards that way. But we'll talk about that, man. What is Cerebro's top point guards? And the reason why we're talking about point guards, because a lot of the point guards we want to talk about are great passers. So what does Cerebro say about, assists and the top point guards you have in the Cerebro systems?
So I think it's really Tyrese Halliburton and then everybody else. Or you could group in Trae Young. Trae Young's number 2 in FGS with the 96. Halliburton is 98. But the difference is that Halliburton averages almost 11 assists per game with only 2 turnovers, right? Yeah. So he's not turning the ball over, almost 11 assists. Trae Young is right there at almost 11. But with 4.5 turnovers, you got Luka number 3, Jokic 4. But what I think that someone that doesn't get enough credit is Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis is 8. Of course, you got LeBron, LaMelo Ball.
But he's we're talking about guards though. But those
guys, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But I agree with you. He's a great passer.
Chris Paul, look out for him. Maybe being up there with Trae Young and Tyrese Halliburton with going to the Spurs. And there's that pick and roll threat with Wemby.
Do you think De'Aaron Fox may have an opportunity to be a top 5 in as far as passers and point guards this upcoming season? Because he's last year he averaged about 5 assists a game, 5.6 assists a game.
Yeah. I think De'Aaron, if he's more of a I would say score first type guard, but 5.5 assists at almost 3 turnovers, he gets that up to 8. You're talking Halliburton being at 10 with the same amount of turnovers, so looking to add at least 6 more per game, which I think that he'll be able to do that now if Keegan Murray can show up on away games. Keegan is extremely hot at home, but unfortunately, when he plays away, his shooting percentage is in the low 30s. But that's expected as a rookie. You're looking for him to kind of bump that this year, which you saw in that first game. He went crazy. You got Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter. Of course, not. I don't know if people are jumping the Kevin Huerter ship, but I wouldn't. I think it was one bad game, right? So you add DeMar DeRozan, right? In the mid range to take that pressure off of Fox, allow Fox to play more free. I think Fox is up top 5, like you said.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? And then we're looking at the eye test with the best passes as far as how fancy and how accurate these guys can be without putting the stats in the equation. Just on the eye test, who you think is the best passer in the league?
I mean, you saw those 2 no-look passes from Halliburton. Jokic, extremely creative in his passing, like you see. Those full court passes that he makes from out of bounds. I see Trae Young, and then also, we were talking about De'Aaron Fox, but I think even Garland can get in there and make some creative passes, but Halliburton for sure and Jokic for sure.
Okay, so and then the last question for you, as far as a combination of guard scoring and assists, who would you have top ranked in that category?
And as far as guards and
They score first and pass later, second.
Score first guards. John Morant, I think, is up there, right? John Morant got all those points in the paint and didn't shoot a 3. I think John Morant, especially having weapons and, if Edie gets up to, he did have a bad first game, but, that's expected as a rookie. He fouled out for the first time since his first time in college. But John Morant, I think, is one of those guards that can do damage like that.
What about Luka? Because he was 33 and 9 points per game last year and 9.8 assists a game last year. That's monster numbers right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I saw a clip from Jason Kidd talking about how he wanted to shorten the length of the court for Luka and talk to him about Kyrie or someone else bringing the ball up and getting him in his half court set, right? Because Luka being that score first point guard, I think more so like a point forward, right? He is doing things that you don't see a lot of bigs do. We forget.
If he reminded you of somebody from past or current, as far as Luka goes, who would you compare him to?
LeBron.
Why LeBron? Because most people say James Harden, and I think Magic Johnson, but why LeBron?
Because he can go in the post. He can back someone down. He finishes at the rim. He's a big dude. Really sees the court like LeBron does. You saw that behind the back pass or behind the head pass the other night. He plays at his own pace, which is super important, right? You're always playing to Luka's pace. LeBron, even in the numbers, LeBron is the closest. He's the closest resemblance of projection of what he could be.
LeBron. Again, I'm looking more so Magic Johnson, in my opinion, but people say James Harden as far as because James can score but James is not a paint scorer for sure, but he can score. Bob, your thoughts on the best passers currently for the 24-25 season?
Well, I've got some comments to add to what you were just talking. Just for the people watching, They talk about a hockey assist, which is the second person that touches the ball. But in the NBA, if you make a pass and that player receiving it takes a dribble, then makes the shot, you do not get an assist. So a lot of people don't know that little fine element. You can make a great pass, but if they take a dribble and then make it, they don't get an assist. And then Ken, come back to our show, Ken. But he said that a few weeks ago when he was talking about LeBron, he said there are those that look to pass first, and then there's those that are willing passers.
Mm-hmm.
And he said LeBron was a willing passer. And I get what both of y'all are saying, because I understand Dame's comment that, Luka makes that be on this side of the court and pass to the corner three on this side, which means he's getting by 3 or 4 players clean across the court to get to the corner three. And you very rarely see that intercepted. But also I kind of favor like what you said, Magic, because Magic was 6'9" and was kind of that same kind of mold player.
Yeah, because I remember that time in, I think it was his rookie season where they played him at center. Remember?
They played him and he scored 42 points and won game 6 for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Magic was the true first tall. 6'9" was power forward size. That played true point guard. And I always said Jalen Rose was poor man's version of Magic Johnson. But yeah, I see the Harden because of the step back. I see Harden. So I think if you blend all 3 of those players together, that's what Luka is.
If you add in, so another name that came up a lot was Paul Pierce.
Pierce?
Yeah, Paul Pierce and Luka's comparison. With Luka being higher on the higher in assists, but his ability to score from 3, score from the block, a lot similar number trajectory in the first 7-8 years of Luka's career. I'm looking to see Luka do what he did last night, or the other night, and that's what you're talking about.
He made kind of like Dirk would make a dunk and nobody. I mean, Mavs fans, but he wasn't a flashy player. Luka likes to make the highlight real flashy pass that you see getting 1 million views the next day on. And I had to watch it 2 or 3 times because PJ was just sitting out there. And he drives by 2 guys, then bumps shoulders into Wemby, then jumps up into Wemby, and he's above Wemby's. He's as high as Wemby. And the harder we teach people, the harder to play it, at the pass right above your head is the hardest to defend.
Mm-hmm.
And Luka, with his back end to Wemby, whips it over his head through Wemby's arms to PJ Washington. I call that the flashy pass. Where he's Harden-like is because of the step back, but I don't think Harden ever had double-digit assists. He like I said,
averaging double digits, or he had double digits?
No, I think the highest Harden ever got was like 7 or 8 assists
in one game.
No, for a season.
Oh, okay, average. Yeah, okay, I got it. All right.
He averaged 8.5 last season.
So I mean, he makes the no look, the ball fake pass. But let's talk. And I'm talking. That's not just point guards. When I look at an NBA passer, someone who can make the pass, and all these guys are athletic and considered very strong. So it ain't like kids where you have to teach them, two-handed pass. But there are certain guys that when you see the star player doesn't even have to move and the pass is right there in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they catch it in the shooting motion. They don't have to reach for it. They don't have to grab it. They don't have to step out to grab the pass. That's a good passer. So to me, the benchmark for great passers, and I'm just going to name 3. There's some others: Bird, Magic, and Kidd. I saw Kidd as a rookie year. He made some passes. You're like, how the heck did he even see that guy? How did he even get it there? early Jason Kidd was very fast.
Yeah, I was hoping they got to the promised land with Jim Jackson and Jamal.
He would chase the ball out of bounds in the air, throw it either between his legs or behind the back, straight at the guy, and the guy didn't even have to move and he'd take a shot. And you're like, what? You're like freeze framing it if he had it on VHS, just to say, like, how did he even do that? But Luka made a full court pass last year that was between the defensive player's legs, bounced up right to the Josh Green up for a dunk.
Yeah, I seen that.
And Luka had the NBA published that he had more assists from 40 plus feet out than any other player in the NBA last year. But the gold standard to me is Bird, Magic, and Kidd, regardless of position. Today, the modern day, I like Dame's comment on Sabonis. I have Luka, Joker, Draymond Green, and LeBron.
As
Draymond
okay.
is underrated.
Draymond. Absolutely agree with Draymond. Yeah.
I mean, he averages a triple double, but it's 10-10-10.
Yeah.
And early in his career, he scored more, hit the 3-pointer. But here's a guy that's basically Luka's size, and the reason they were able to beat Cleveland is LeBron couldn't go through Draymond Green. They were of equal thickness, strength, and height, and so LeBron was basically forced to play outside because of Draymond, and he's got great instincts, great foot speed. The whole Steph Curry run around for 10 miles in a game and Clay over here and then running. That doesn't work without Draymond.
Yeah, because he's a willing passer.
Exactly. So Sabonis has got some of that, but and Joker, I mean, you're over 7 foot tall. It's kind of like you take your biggest kid in the middle of his zone. Used to be the zone breaker. You pass it to him because nobody could jump that high to get to the ball. And little kids or high school can't jump to get to the ball. And he hold it up here and then look around because no one's used block. Joker's kind of got that advantage. Just like if you don't watch it, he'll turn and take one step and then it's dunk. So, but it gets back to what we talked about, the European versus the AU model a couple episodes ago. So I think you see that influence in Luka and Joker, and you're going to see some of that in the other European players that are coming over.
So, any word on like what you? Well, I know Jamal Murray for Denver. He's not a bad player. Does he remind you of anybody that remotely is a good passer?
In the 80s, he's kind of a cross between Derek Harper and Roe Blockman. But there's one other name I have on here, and he's your favorite player to watch, and you emulated his game. I thought he was a very good passer. Chris Webber was very underrated as a passer.
Oh yeah, you talk Chris Webber. That's the reason why. One of the reasons why we call Swish for real with the number 4. That's because of Chris Webber.
And he was a very good passer.
Nah, man, that was my favorite player. I mean, he's still my favorite all-time player, and I'm starting to like the Banchero, man. Banchero reminds me of Chris Webber in so many ways. But you're right, man. Chris was an amazing passer, especially when he was in college, and then in the NBA, he just turned it up a notch.
Well, and you remember he had Vlade Divac on that Sacramento team.
Yeah.
Vivian Stojakovic. So, Weber find Divac find somebody else. The next thing you know is a layup. And the coach is just like pulling his hair out, trying to figure out how they get a layup out of that.
Man, boy, was a master class when it comes to passing, especially at his height. And it kind of reminds you of, Sabonis in the late 90s when he played for Portland, because that was a pretty good passer as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else you got on that subject, Bob, as far as good passers?
I will say this: if you're whether you watch the game for several years or decades, or you're just new to the game, when whoever the team you're watching or rooting for, when the point guard or whoever has the ball, if the other player has to do any more movement than this, it's a bad pass. Every coach will tell you if it isn't right there where they're ready to shoot or get it, make a move, if they have to move their feet or their arms or jump to get the ball, that's a bad pass. So it's like we talked about assists, turnovers are just as big. 11-2 ratio for Tyrese. That's just unheard of. It used to be if you were 2-1 assists to turnovers or 3-1, you were considered exceptional. So
Yeah.
you try to make fancy passes. Well, I mean, I'm sure you did this too. You as a coach, it drive you crazy. Then anyway, but I told you, it's like make the simple play, not the fancy play. So, bad passes show up in turnovers. Either it's like interceptions of football. Either the player's in the wrong spot or the passer was anticipating something that the other player was supposed to do and didn't do.
He zigged, but instead he zagged, basically. All right, guys. So this again, Dane, appreciate you coming on. It's been an amazing show as always. We're gonna hit that Boogey Bob on them. Let's get it. Yo, Dane, tell everybody where they can find you at social media handles and all that good stuff, man. And again, congrats on Cerebro locking in with Google, man. There's so many big things going on with Cerebro, but go ahead and give the crowd your information.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, you can catch me on Instagram at Dame Reams. But yeah, catch me on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for having me. I had a blast. It was good seeing you again, Boogey Bob. Good seeing you, Big Mike. Appreciate you guys a lot. It definitely feels like home coming on here.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, little quiet as kept, guys. Dane pushed me out here, man, to get me started in this podcast thing. So salute to you, man, for having confidence and instilling all that information to me to make it keep going, man. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Always.
And Boogey Bob, my co-hosts in the building. Tell the people all about you, your social media handles, and all the stuff they can find you on in this worldwide of the internet.
So, Dame, love that you came back, and you're welcome anytime. Glad to have you on. You can find me on YouTube at Boogey Bob, or as I like to say, Swish for real. And my new tagline is, "We got you covered. Just subscribe. Subscribe."
And then there's the logo up there in the corner over there. So, guys, again. Oh, there you go, Boogey Bob. There he is. Hey, that's him right there. So
just subscribe to you, big dog.
Woo! That's love. That's love. All right, guys, we're signing out, guys. Have a great weekend. This is Swish for Real, your boy, Big Mike, and we are out. Have a great one, guys.
Thank you.